I'll tell you what, I was pleasantly surprised by the Rogue Prince of Persia. It only took 20 years, essentially 2/3 of my entire life, for Ubisoft to finally release another good Prince of Persia game. Ignoring the mediocrity that was the reboot in 2008 and The Forgotten Sands and The Last Crown, the Rogue Prince of Persia is the first time in decades where I didn't want to bury my head in the sand and scream. Now, I appreciate that it might seem like I'm coming off a little harsh, but Ubisoft sort of painted themselves into a corner when they developed the Prince of Persia trilogy. The Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones are Prince of Persia perfection, and together make a strong case for arguably being the best game ever made. But it's just because of their success and outright genius that it's near enough an impossible task to create another game which will match or even surpass that. So as you would expect with a Prince of Persia game, the gameplay is primarily focused around fighting hordes of enemies and exploring the world using parkour. The combat is pretty much what you'd expect from a roguelike. It's fast, punchy, and can be a lot of fun. It doesn't compare to the rhythmic or acrobatic dances that you found yourself having in the original trilogy, but I suppose there's limitations with it being 2D versus 3D. One thing that did really gripe me is the fact that you can't block hits. Instead, you're stuck with a dodge tactic and this homage to being able to vault over the characters, and whilst both are nice, there's a cooldown for each, which means that you often find yourself eating a blade or two. I mean, I get it, it's a roguelike and it's supposed to be hard, but a simple block button would have gone a long way here. As for the parkour, which, let's face it, is the heart of Prince of Persia, it feels like they almost stuck the landing, but undershot it slightly. With that said, when you're able to chain a few moves together and your stamina, or breath as the game calls it, begins to build up, it does feel pretty damn good. What I did like is that they didn't go down the lazy Assassin's Creed route of hold RT to parkour in a general direction. Instead, you're made to juggle between multiple buttons and time things perfectly, which makes it feel all the more rewarding when things click into place, or at least it does when it doesn't randomly bug out on you in the middle of a movement puzzle. Weapons though, they're a win. I had a lot of fun cycling through the different primaries and tools, and I appreciated that there wasn't an obvious meta, which helped keep things fresh. Everything felt reasonably balanced, and so it comes down more to your particular playstyle. Where things get messy is the game's structure. At first I found it quite confusing. Not so much the controls or the movement, but how you're meant to follow the quests and actually make progress. Compared to another roguelike such as Hades, which is a very linear hack and slash, this game throws in an extra layer of exploration and that makes it feel a little less focused. It's like the developers couldn't quite decide if they wanted it to be a condensed roguelike or a sprawling Metroidvania, and instead went with a slightly awkward mix of the two. Now, I'll admit, having played Prince of Persia for decades and having a parkour background myself, yeah, that's right, you heard me, I used to do parkour. Anyway, as I was saying, with that background, traversal felt pretty natural, but I can see a lot of players struggling to begin with. Now, you don't have to be a parkour expert like me to get the hang of it, but I do think that for newcomers it can come across as a little daunting, clunky, and definitely not as polished as the trilogy. Once you push through that awkward learning curve, it does begin to click, and when it does, it's actually quite different from most 2D platformers out there, in a good way. When it comes to the story, there isn't too much to write home about. It's about as generic as you'd expect it to be. People have invaded, family is under threat, and the princess has saved some people. It's boilerplate good guy protagonist stuff, but where it does shine through is in the prince himself. He's still hilarious with a sarcastic and cocky attitude. They've removed the fourth wall breaking elements, which made him really stand out, but still, there's elements of his former self coming through in this version. Alongside his characteristic traits, a few other subtle nods I noticed to the original games was in the artwork for the majority of the monsters. I feel like they drew inspiration from the enemies found in Warrior Within more so than anywhere else. In addition to this, there's the slow and deliberate wall descent, which feels like a callback to the claw mechanic we saw in the 2008 reboot. Even the first boss, General Baroud, gave me strong Tahaka vibes. I doubt it was intentional, but you see what I mean. As for the world, it's alright, don't get me wrong, it's nice to look at, it's vibrant, it's layered, and there's a unique aesthetic to each area, and while it leans into the roguelike structure, I guess you could say that it manages to capture the general Prince of Persia atmosphere, but I think my problem stems from what I said earlier about how the game can't quite decide if it's a roguelike or a Metroidvania. Perhaps it lends itself more to the trilogy's predecessors, but I can't say I've ever picked them up, so I wouldn't know. Now, I will admit, I think the artwork's brilliant. It sort of reminds me of the artwork found in Hades, which I'm a huge fan of, but more to the point, it's just levels above the artwork in The Lost Crown. Now, whilst the artwork in that game wasn't terrible, I mean, it's certainly better than anything I could do. It just feels a little too childish, perhaps. I'm not really sure what the word is, but the overall 3D aesthetic just reminded me of those low-budget animations you find in Clash of Clans or Clash Royale. It sort of just felt like they'd taken a toon brush and applied it to previous artwork styles. Now, I can already feel people rush into the comments to shout at me that this artwork has a very toon style as well, which, in fairness, it does, but I don't know, I just think it's better. As for the music, it'd be easy for me to say that it's nowhere near as close to the absolute insane soundtrack we were gifted with in Warrior Within, which it's not, but I'm a metalhead at heart, so I'm biased. But what I will say is that I really liked it. From what I can tell, it was all produced by the single artist Asadi, who, in my opinion, literally looks like the Prince of Persia. I mean, just look at him. His style reminds me of a lot of bands like Aphex Twin and Venetian Snares, but it's a hard one to define. Like, you can clearly hear the use of Persian instruments, but he somehow managed to chop it up and make it unique by mixing it together with electronic sonic sounds. Either way, it's really refreshing and I think it fits the game quite nicely. In terms of the vibe, it didn't feel very Prince of Persia to begin with, but the more I played it, the more it felt like I was at home. Ignoring the fact that it's a little confusing to begin with and it doesn't quite know which format it wants to be, I did have a lot of fun with this game. I'd say it's pretty difficult overall, so you have to be looking for a challenge. Things like health potions are scarce, and whilst I know the whole point of a roguelike is to rinse and repeat runs, getting stronger and stronger each time, I still feel like the game could be quite unforgiving. I do wish it was a little faster paced with the parkour, not like Sonic speeds or anything, but a little bump would have been nice. On top of that, I feel like the game was maybe 30% parkour and 70% combat, but a nice 50-50 balance would have been better. Like I said in my islets video, I'm an old man and I'm a dad now. Long gone are the days where I can immerse myself into a AAA game for hours on end, and so the fact that this game only takes approximately 10 hours to complete was right up my street. I will admit its short length works in its favour. If it was a full-on 40-hour game, I probably would have put it down before I finished it, but because it's a shorter game does mean that there's a bump in the rating, which I'll get onto later. I'm not sure if anyone else does this, but I've always had a correlation between the price of the game and the number of hours of enjoyment you get from it. It's not an exact science, but I'd say that a game is good value for money if you can spend approximately £1 or $1 for every hour that you play the game. If you manage to get 40 hours of enjoyment out of something, then it's worth 40 quid. Now, because it's a roguelike, the game is literally structured around pick up and play if you're short on time. I'd say an average run lasted me anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes, which meant I was able to pick it up, crack out a run or two, and put it down knowing I'd made some progress ready for the next time. It wouldn't be a proper review video if I didn't run through the pros and cons. On the pro side, we have the fact that there's a decent variety of weapons and combat styles with no obvious meta, the incredible artwork and music production, both of which deserve some serious recognition. The movement is top tier for a 2D side-scroller with interesting mechanics, and finally, it's a short game, which for people like me with limited time is always a winner. Then for the cons, I'd say there's the steep learning curve, which isn't helped by the fact that the game doesn't quite know if it's a roguelike or a Metroidvania, and then despite having incredible movement, the game will sometimes cancel movement animations and break your flow, which can get quite annoying. Unfortunately, there isn't a block, which I think would have gone a long way and improved the combat significantly. And then to round it off, I think the worst part is the complexity around the missions and the whole mind map element. I think the game could have been much better if it had solely focused on linear progression and providing storytelling through good dialogue and cutscenes instead. So even though I feel like I've spent the majority of this video complaining about the game and unfairly comparing it to the trilogy, I do have to say that it's pretty brilliant and I would highly recommend it to anyone who's a fan of the franchise. But saying that, even if you've never played a Prince of Persia game before, it's still worth looking into if you're somebody who wants a quick game but with a challenge. Overall, I'm going to give the game a solid 8.5 out of 10, which may come as a bit of a surprise to you, but I did genuinely have a really good time with this game and I think you will do too. And that's it, guys. If you've liked listening to me ramble on about Prince of Persia and would like to hear more, let me know in the comments if I should do a video on the original trilogy. Otherwise, let me know what game I should review next. I'm always on the lookout for something new and fun or even interesting to play, so drop your suggestions down below. I hope you've enjoyed yourself and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers!